In the world's most perilous maritime chokepoint, the Strait of Hormuz, that long-feared breaking point has now arrived without warning. The United States has dispatched a formidable naval presence to pry open this vital artery of global trade. On April 11, two advanced guided missile destroyers, the USS Frank E. Petersen Jr. and the USS Michael Murphy, successfully transited the strait. Yet these powerful surface ships represent merely the visible edge of a much larger operation. Following closely behind them are sophisticated underwater drones deployed by American forces to tackle the hidden threats lurking below. U.S. Central Command has confirmed the initiation of a comprehensive mine-clearing mission in the area. This passage, however, unfolded amid rising tensions rather than in calm waters. Iranian Revolutionary Guard naval forces quickly shadowed the American warships and issued a direct radio warning, declaring it the final alert. The U.S. vessels continued their transit, asserting full compliance with international maritime law and existing ceasefire understandings. At the height of the standoff, reports emerged that American units neutralized an Iranian-operated drone approaching the formation. In response, Tehran publicly denied that any ships had completed the crossing, claiming instead that the vessels had retreated after the warning. At the same time, Iranian officials vowed far more severe countermeasures against any future military movements inside the strait. The timing of this tense naval encounter carries particular significance. It came just hours after extended diplomatic discussions in Pakistan, spanning more than 21 hours, failed to produce any concrete breakthrough. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance openly criticized Iran for committing a serious miscalculation, offering a glimpse into the strategic calculations unfolding behind closed doors. In essence, Washington appears poised to employ its naval assets, including both surface ships and underwater systems, to fully restore freedom of navigation through Hormuz. Beneath the massive oil tankers and advanced underwater vehicles, however, lies a far more treacherous and unpredictable danger. Iranian naval mines deployed hastily and without clear patterns now drift unpredictably with strong undercurrents, their exact positions largely unknown and capable of triggering disaster at any moment. These mines were laid rapidly by small boats operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. Many have since been carried far from their intended locations by powerful seafloor currents in the Gulf. The resulting mix of moored contact mines, acoustic and magnetic influence mines, plus free-floating variants, has transformed the strait into a deadly invisible maze. Iran has effectively lost command over the very hazard it unleashed, creating widespread chaos across these critical waters. Still, the successful transit and safe return of two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the USS Frank E. Petersen Jr. and the USS Michael Murphy, through this hazardous zone, offers a cautious note of optimism for regional stability. The choice of these specific vessels was clearly deliberate, rather than random. Far from simple minesweepers, they function as mobile command centers, packed with cutting-edge Aegis combat systems, able to monitor vast distances through integrated radar networks. Their role extended well beyond basic clearance efforts. They serve to map and secure a reliable new transit pathway through Hormuz, while laying groundwork for protected corridors to guide commercial shipping safely. Early signs of success are already visible. Following the ceasefire, 3 large supertankers became the first to navigate the Gulf, successfully passing through the once-blocked waters. Clearly, the strategic dynamics inside the strait are shifting rapidly, potentially unlocking the long-stalled flow of global oil supplies, step by step. For that to happen, however, the waterway must be rendered fully safe for sustained international maritime operations, say. The heavier lifting in this regard will fall to highly advanced autonomous underwater vehicles and unmanned systems scheduled for deployment in the near future. So what direction is this evolving situation likely to take? In the coming days, could we witness a fully demined Hormuz with a dependable narrow shipping lane, allowing oil tankers to complete their passage in roughly 7 hours? American leadership holds ambitious plans on this front. President Donald Trump delivered pointed remarks, suggesting the ultimate solution for securing the strait might involve bolder measures when he stated that the United States would open it, regardless, even without NATO assistance. His words underscored America's willingness to act decisively and unilaterally if needed. This hints that Washington's strategy may extend far beyond simply deploying warships and drones into Hormuz. A more comprehensive approach possibly involving an entirely different operational concept, could be in play, one that caught Iranian planners off guard and fundamentally reshapes the balance across the region. Following the breakdown of talks, Trump signaled this tougher stance through his personal social media platform. Media outlets have referred to the emerging concept as the Out-Blockade. Should Iran fail to guarantee safe and unrestricted access to the strait it mined, and subsequently lost control of the U.S. Navy, stands prepared to impose its own controls. This would go beyond establishing a single safe corridor. It envisions placing the key entry and exit points of Hormuz firmly under American naval oversight, allowing the United States to determine which vessels may pass and under what condition. The implications now reach well beyond a bilateral U.S.-Iran dispute. Roughly 20% of the world's daily oil supply must transit this narrow passage, making any disruption or contest for control a potential spark for widespread energy turmoil, affecting continents from Europe to Asia. Europe's already strained industries could face devastating ripple effects from such a shock. Against this backdrop, how might Trump's proposed out-blockade manifest in practical terms? The U.S. Fifth Fleet remains on heightened alert throughout the region. The Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, to which the Petersen destroyer belongs, maintains significant combat power positioned across the Persian Gulf and surrounding waters. Should conflict escalate, fighter jets, including F-35s and F-18s, launching from the carrier, could establish a robust air defense shield over the strait. On the surface, cruisers and additional Arleigh Burke destroyers could form a formidable barrier, effectively sealing access points when required. Looking ahead to the immediate operational steps, Washington appears focused first on surgically clearing a secure lane through the strait's narrowest 21-mile section. Advanced assets such as knife-fish autonomous underwater drones, along with other mine countermeasure systems, could work quietly beneath the surface to carve out this protected pathway for large vessels. If that initial effort succeeds, early tanker convoys could begin moving under the protective cover of the Abraham Lincoln Group, potentially restoring up to 40% of normal traffic flow. Yet if Iran maintains its hardline position, the more aggressive out-blockade phase could unfold with full force. Reinforcements, including extra destroyers, Ticonderoga cruisers, and P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft, might converge on the area. Together, these capabilities could convert the strait's approaches into tightly controlled checkpoints. At that stage, the U.S. Navy could implement measures to inspect or divert suspect shipping, effectively disrupting as much as 70% of Iran's daily oil export capacity. Should the situation deteriorate further with Iran reaching the ceasefire by May, Washington would likely broaden its coalition. Drawing on support from Gulf state facilities and with contributions from British vessels like the RFA Cardigan Bay, plus French tripartite minehunters, the operation could evolve into a larger multinational effort. Additional participation from NATO's mine countermeasures groups and Italian Gaeta-class ships could complete a comprehensive air, sea, and cyber patrol network around the strait. Although European nations have indicated their naval forces would join mine clearing only after active hostilities cease, the ongoing closure of Hormuz is already inflicting serious energy pain on the continent. Trump's public pressure on Europe to contribute meaningfully could also influence the EU's broader strategic posture. In the end, this sequence could either deliver a safely cleared corridor, allowing the global economy to recover, or allow drifting mines to ignite an uncontrollable cycle of escalation. The dangers inherent in any such operation remain extremely high. Iran possesses thousands of suicide drones and hundreds of coastal anti-ship ballistic missiles optimized for strikes against large vessels in the confined shallow waters of the Gulf. This asymmetric approach, long refined by the Revolutionary Guards, targets precisely the vulnerabilities of powerful warships operating in tight spaces. At its narrowest, the strait spans only 21 miles, placing American assets within rapid reaction range of shore-launched threats. Any successful hit on a U.S. warship or damage from unmanned surface vessels could rapidly escalate a regional crisis into something far more catastrophic. Tehran's firm stance at the negotiating table signals its readiness to accept these risks. In discussions encompassing its nuclear ambitions, sanctions relief, and regime survival, the strait remains Iran's most tangible and potent leverage. Iran recognizes that relinquishing control over this choke point could accelerate its own strategic decline. Despite the absence of full-scale mobilization at present, Iran's precarious position and the resulting market volatility continue to drive scenario planning worldwide. The energy crunch may erode Europe's ability to maintain strict neutrality as the conflict drags on. Oil prices have surged past $118 per barrel and continue rising. Maritime insurance costs have multiplied dramatically. Many ship operators are absorbing elevated mine risk premiums, while others simply avoid the route altogether. Global supply chains are experiencing significant strain. The consequences extend much further, however. Beyond Europe, major Asian economies face acute challenges. Nations such as China, Japan, South Korea, and India rely heavily on oil imports routed through Hormuz. Disruptions here slow Chinese manufacturing strain, Japanese refining operations, and force South Korean petrochemical firms to seek costly alternatives. Europe's own supplies of liquefied natural gas and crude are similarly exposed. While detour routes exist, including the Suez Canal or the longer Cape of Good Hope passage, both come with steep penalties. The Cape route adds roughly 10 extra days and doubles fuel expenses. Suez, meanwhile, operates near capacity and contends with separate security threats from Houthi activities. This is not solely an oil crisis. Natural gas, petrochemicals, fertilizers, and plastics feedstock also transit the strait. When Hormuz clogs, the effects cascade across sectors from transportation and food production to electronics, agriculture, and construction. With baseline inflation already elevated, this disruption risks entrenching deeper structural economic pressures. Import-dependent developing nations stand to suffer most severely, potentially sliding toward debt spirals. Even optimistic projections suggest full mine clearance could require months, meaning the economic bleeding may persist for some time. Interestingly, Iran's own gamble is inflicting self-damage. Its oil exports must also navigate Hormuz, yet the mines it deployed now obstruct its primary revenue stream. Pre-war daily exports of around 1.5 million barrels have been largely paralyzed. Strategically, this episode has spotlighted the vulnerabilities of over-reliance on a single maritime chokepoint. Nations are now accelerating diversification toward alternative energy sources and shipping lanes. Though costly in the near term, these shifts could gradually diminish the strait's long-held geopolitical weight. In this sense, Iran's use of Hormuz as leverage is producing a classic boomerang outcome. The longer the closure persists, the more urgently the world pursues workarounds. Consequently, Iran's singular advantage steadily erodes. Here lies the core irony of this asymmetric tactic. When the very weapon intended to pressure adversaries ends up wounding its user even during relative calm, it ceases to be clever strategy and becomes a costly error. Observing this unfolding miscalculation from the sidelines with evident strategic satisfactions stands one major global player, Russia. As Tehran grapples with the economic and credibility losses from its self-created trap, Moscow appears to be capitalizing on the resulting turmoil almost as a lifeline. Already burdened by Western sanctions and having invested heavily in a shadow fleet for energy exports, Russia finds the Hormuz disruptions particularly advantageous. With barrel prices above $118 and widespread supply anxiety, the Western price cap on Russian oil has lost much of its bite. European and Asian buyers facing industrial shutdown risks are increasingly compelled to bypass or soften sanctions to secure needed supplies. The resulting windfall of revenue is flowing directly into Russian coffers, bolstering its military-industrial base. Yet Russia's benefits extend beyond short-term price spikes. On a deeper level, the crisis may enhance the appeal of Moscow's long-cherished Northern Sea Route project. This Arctic corridor linking Asia and Europe bypasses the Middle East, entirely remaining unaffected by mines, drones, or regional instability. By facilitating safer transit with nuclear icebreakers, Russia could collect substantial fees while generating fresh funding streams to sustain its efforts in Ukraine. Europe's hesitation to align fully with U.S. initiatives on Hormuz further plays into this dynamic. Militarily, the situation offers Russia and China valuable intelligence on the extent to which American forces can be stretched across theaters. Both capitals closely track U.S. naval, air, and ground deployments in the Gulf. The diversion of significant American deterrence assets away from the Pacific and European fronts inadvertently widens maneuvering space for Moscow and Beijing in other potential flashpoints. Viewed broadly, Iran's high-stakes gamble, framed as existential resistance, has become entangled in a larger geopolitical contest. While Tehran believes it is confronting Washington and disrupting global flows at the expense of its own lifeline, it may inadvertently be advancing the interests of other powers, as its minds drag the country toward deeper isolation and economic distress. Russia and China observe with calculated detachment their own agendas, proceeding on separate tracks. In light of this international backing for America's, efforts to restore safe passage through Hormuz could prove decisive. Such cooperation would help prevent the Strait's threats from remaining under exclusive Iranian influence, and instead becoming tools that empower broader adversarial strategies. Ultimately, restoring reliable maritime access demands coordinated global action. What are your thoughts on how this complex situation might unfold? We welcome your perspectives in the comments. Thank you for choosing us.